All right, welcome to another episode of Jeep Torque. And today I want to go over all things throttle in your Jeep. I often get a lot of questions out there on, hey, how can I get my pedal when I hit it? The Jeep just doesn't want to take off. Is there anything that I could do to make that better? So there is two options out there that you can approach with this. There's a more economical one, or if you want to spend a little bit more and get a few more enhancements, features, then you have another route to go. So let's start with the throttle enhancement side of things. So when I first got my Jeep, I did concentrate on everything in the engine. I just wanted to get as much horsepower. You're always going to want to change your exhaust. You want to make it sound better. You're going to want to figure out, hey, how can I get this 3.6 Pentastar to really get some horsepower out of it? And one of the first things that I did, and I was always reading out there, is the throttle enhancement. In my particular situation, I ended up going with something that was called an SEC10, and they still have them out there. And I decided to go with that one just based on some of the reviews I had read on the product itself. And the price point at the time was at a good price point compared to the other model that's out there that I'll go over as well. So I ended up having it in my Jeep for 2 years. It was really great. It did what it needed to do. I actually have it here because I ended up having to remove it, and I'll tell you why in a few minutes. But basically, it'll have this little button that you're going to route up to your dash or by your steering wheel or wherever you could see this. And when you physically push this, this will glow into a different color. And based on whatever that color is, you're either in sport mode, eco mode, track mode, valet mode. So really easy to install. It's got the adhesive on the back. So I had this like right by where I could visually see it and where I could press it if I needed to. This is the actual brains right here. So this piece is going to go underneath your dash, just above your pedal, your gas pedal, and then you're going to disconnect where your pedal is today that controls that, and you're going to connect one end into here and then the other end back into the pedal, which has its electronics there, and then it's going to give the signal back over to your throttle body. So nothing crazy, it's not too big, it's not too crazy to install. This will mount underneath there. So I'll go over what the installation process looked like and what kind of gymnastics you're going to have to do underneath your dash to get that thing fully installed in there. So again, there is particular different models out there. The most popular one will be your pedal commander. For me, honestly, if you go with a pedal commander or you go with the SEC10 or any of these here, they're all going to do the exact same thing. They all have an app now. The pedal commander probably by far is the most popular one, and the prices are relatively around the same price. It's $299 for the pedal commander, and I paid around the same price for the SEC10. So you're going to pay at that price point. It's going to be relatively around the same price. So the pedal commander, I believe, though, has a security feature where you could turn it on if someone happens to steal your Jeep. That pedal won't work. You could command that all from the app, which is great. So you could set that before you step out of your Jeep and then, go to bed or whatever. And if somebody tries to steal, at least that pedal is not gonna work. So they're relatively all the same. So for me, any one of these options here is gonna work for you. It really comes down to how much do you want to spend and what kind of device do you want? Do you want more of an old school pressing button type of person? Or are you a person that likes the app or having both? So if you're going to go for both, I like my SCC10. It was great. Or you could go with the pedal commander. Those are the two that I would recommend for sure. So the installation process on these, you're going to have to get on your back underneath that dash. You're going to have to find the connector to your pedal. It could sometimes be a little bit of annoying getting underneath there and unplugging it, disconnecting it. You might pull a muscle or so as you're doing this, but once you get in there, unplug that plug and get the new plug plugged in there, and then everything kind of tucked away. Use some zip ties to keep that brain piece of fuel, which is this piece, from falling down as you're pressing on your pedal and you're moving. You definitely don't want this to interfere with your pedal when you start driving, so make sure that's secure in there. So not hard to install, just follow the steps, follow the instructions, definitely not hard. So that's that on the throttle enhancements. The other thing I want to go over are the tuners that are out there. So there's all different variations. The one that I have in my Jeep today is the Trail Dash 2 from Super Chips. I don't believe you could get that anymore. You might be able to get it off of eBay. They now have a Trail Dash 3, which is a bigger display. The colors and it's a bit better on the resolution side of things. I think it has some more settings in it as well, and the response time on touching that touchscreen is a lot better than the Trail Dash 2. So my particular case, I have this one here that I still have in my Jeep, and it works out well for me. I really don't want to change and go to a Trail Dash 3. I don't really have a reason for it. I have it tuned perfectly the way I want it to be tuned. It comes with all the different settings here. You have performance tuning where you could change it from 93 to towing. So if you're going to tow something, you could actually hit the setting. It'll go through a few steps there. It's going to tell you what to do. And then you're in tow mode where it'll kind of give you more torque than horsepower. And you'll notice it. You'll definitely feel it. You could change the layout. You could do some recording and record some of the things that are going on in your Jeep to reference later. You have a data log that you could pull as well for it, which comes in handy. There's a performance testing option. So if you wanted to test your horsepower in 0 to 60, those options are in there. The diagnostics is one that I use all the time. So any DTC codes that are going to pop up, this will read it, and you could actually clear it from here, which is great. You don't have to go and grab your little device that you would plug into your ODB2 scanner, use a scanner and do a bi-directional and kind of clear that out. This will actually do it for you. So that comes in handy. And then there's a mileage coach if you want to keep track of your miles and if it's actually working. If you do set this performance setting to eco, it actually does help you on your miles per gallon for sure. I have mine on 93 because I want to get as much horsepower, so I am burning a little bit more fuel. I also changed my ignition coils to match the Super Chip ignition coils. You don't have to do that, but I did do that. And then you have this maintenance manager as well if you want to get reminded on certain things and you don't want to forget about it. Also cool to have that in there and set. So if you do go to sell your Jeep, you could show the history of what you've done. And then there's the settings to put it back to factory defaults and things of that nature. And then, of course, a help. This is all touchscreen, and you could, kind of go through. You tap on the right corner here, or you tap on the left. I don't want to say corner, in the middle of the screen. A little arrow will show up, and you could cycle through the different screens. This option here allows you to connect your auxiliaries. There's an adapter you could get. So if you're not into hitting the switches, you want a digital type of setup where you could turn your lights on and off. That's what this does here. You could also change your tire size. So if you do change your tires, you do change your gear ratio, you can go in here and change this as well, and it'll tell the PCM and it'll make those adjustments, which is really great. And then, of course, you have all different visuals that you could set up. You have some old school gauges that you could set up if you're into that. And each one of these is programmable. The only thing you can't capture and record is oil pressure. Outside of that, you're going to capture everything else. And then there's some other different screens that you could use. I actually use this one here, and I have everything set for mine as well. So this is the Trail Dash 2. The only issue I ever had with this is the touchscreen did stop responding, and I reached out to Super Chips, which I think is part of Holly now. I think they own them. Support was great. They turned around a brand new one really quick, and I sent back the damaged one. So that was great, and I was back up and running pretty quickly. Now, to deal with the Super Chips, you're going to have to send your PCM back to them to get it unlocked. So you're going to have to account for that. So if you think you're just going to buy this and install it and then it's ready to go, yeah, it'll read, it'll do some reading only, but you're not going to be able to make any changes or adjustments that I just mentioned until you get that PCM unlocked. So you are going to have to send that out. It'll probably take 2 to 3 days depending on where you are, but they are pretty quick at turning this thing around. So that's the deal with the Super Chip. There is another product out there which I like as well, and I've heard some really good things about it, and that's the Diablo. Diablo has a package where you could actually get the PCM and unlocked already. It'll come as a whole entire kit, so you'll get this PCM. You don't have to turn around and unlock it. It'll come with it, and then you just replace what you have today. Set yours aside for later use if you want to. If you have any problems, you could always have that on the side. But obviously, the price point is definitely a bit more steep than your traditional super chip that you would get from the Trail Dash 3, which is around, I think it's around $800. So that's where you're looking at the difference there, because you're sending your stock PCM back versus your Diablo. It's going to give you that PCM. The installation here obviously is a bit different than just installing a throttle enhancement. So you're going to have to get into your engine bay, and it's usually on your driver's side. You'll locate your PCM. There are two major connections that are going to go in here. One routes out to your TIPM, which controls a lot of things in your Jeep. And then you have another one that'll go out and do some transmission and talk to other things in your Jeep as well. So you have to be really careful. Unplugging it is not a problem. There's a clip. You'll unplug these and you can pull them out. That's not the problem. It's the putting it back in. You definitely don't want to damage anything on that female connector that you're pressing back in. If you damage anything in there, you're going to be in some trouble trying to get that whole entire cabling replaced. So be really cautious there. Once you get that installed inside your Jeep itself, you're going to have to route a few cables down the side of your panel. So you're going to need some panel trim tools to pop the plastic out, and then route what will look like an HDMI. It's actually an HDMI cable. It'll go in the back of this display here, and then the other one goes down to the brains that'll be underneath, connected into your ODB2 port. Now, what I did is I actually bought a splitter for my ODB2 port. So this way I didn't have to constantly unplug my super chip when I was doing any sort of diagnostics. I didn't want to keep unplugging it because after a while it will wear down that OB2 port in there. So I got a splitter. You could get it on Amazon. They sell them everywhere. So definitely pick one of those up. And then now if you change your radio as well, it'll come with some features where it could take advantage of plugging into your ODB2 port, and you could see some cool things visually on your radio as well. So definitely get one of those splitters, or at least invest in one of those, and don't just plug this into your ODB port. So now, do these things work? We'll start with the throttle enhancement. Absolutely. You put one of those in and you change that thing to sport mode, or you change it to track mode, it's going to take off. Like, you'll notice the difference with your RPMs, that total response, it's going to make your Jeep go. So definitely works. I've never seen one that doesn't work. I've never had anybody come back and say, hey, Mara, that thing didn't work at all. It works. So if you're looking for something quick to get that response with your throttle, then definitely go with one of those. You'll spend $300, and it's, within 2 hours or so, you'll get this thing in under that. Really, you'll get it installed and up and running, and you don't have to do much. You just have to get the app installed, do some registration there with your email, and you're up and running. Now, the tuner is a bit different once you get this thing installed. Obviously, if you go the super chip route, you're going to have to wait for that PCM to be shipped back to you and unlocked. And then, there's a bit more steps with installing that whole thing. But once that's in, you could do all sorts of different changes with your settings. Now, the issue that I ran into, I already had my SEC10 throttle enhancement inside and installed on the Jeep. What I ended up doing is I installed the super chip because I had read and I had reached out to their support. I was like, look, I have my throttle enhancement. Can I keep that still? I want to have that same type of feel that I get with my pedal from that SEC10. They said it shouldn't be a problem. Only when I go to install my super chip Trail Dash 2, there is a question that'll come up and it'll ask you if you want to enhance your throttle or you want to keep it normal. I set it to normal because I already had that SEC10. So I did all that and everything seemed fine. And then as I was driving and coming off the light and in traffic, I noticed it would do some erratic things where I would hit my pedal and it would just kind of take off and send my engine into some crazy high RPM. So definitely there was some conflict going on there. They didn't like each other. So ultimately I ended up uninstalling my SEC10. not because it wasn't working. It just was conflicting with my Trail Dash 2. So unfortunately, I can't get back to that setting to set it to an enhanced mode from my pedal with the Trail Dash 2. So I had to reset to factory default my Trail Dash 2 device to get that question to pop back up. And then I set it to, hey, yeah, enhance my throttle and my pedal. So then it did do the same exact thing that my SEC 10. The only downside is I didn't have a sport, an eco, or a track mode anymore. It just, that is what I locked into my Trail Dash 2, and that's all I could do. There is no other setting there. I believe that the Trail Dash 3 is different now. It'll have that setting in there. I believe so. So that was like the downside where it was a bummer for me, but it fixed my situation. I still have it installed and it works out really well for me. I use it a lot to check my temperature. If I'm off-roading, I want to be able to keep an eye on that, on my engine coolant temp, on my transmission temp. As you're in that slow mode, high RPM, it's hot out there and you're going to start to heat that engine up. So that's where that comes into play for me. And it works out really well. And then obviously going from those settings of down to like using a towing setting when I'm towing my boat works really well as well. So for sure, if I was going to tell someone to do this all over again, I would say, hey, save your money. Don't get the throttle enhancement. Just save your money and go ahead and invest in any one of these tuners. Because trust me, it does make a difference. You're going to look at increases of around 22 to 25, in some cases 28% horsepower increase. I've seen that in mine. So for sure, you're going to get an increase in that horsepower. So well worth the money. So definitely set some money aside for that. And I would go straight to the tuner side of things. Again, if you have patience and you're good at putting, let's say, remote control cars together, or you could follow instructions when you're installing those, building those IKEA furniture type of things, you'll have no problem installing these things. Just follow the steps, take your time, and you'll get it all installed and up and running before you know it. The other thing that I want to add is not on the throttle enhancement side, but on the tuners, you do have to upkeep with the firmware. So you do want to make sure that you quarterly, I'd say quarterly. I'm an IT guy by trade. So I would quarterly check if there's any firmware that Superchips put out or Diablo. You're going to need a laptop. In some cases, the Diablo and the Trail Dash 3 now will do it over Wi-Fi, which is great. The Trail Dash 2, I still have to connect a cable to it. And you still have those options with the Trail Dash 3. And you have that option with the Diablo using a cable right to your laptop. You could download the firmware, let it do its thing. Make sure you follow all the steps and what it's telling you to do. Super, super important. And then once you get that going, you'll have at least the latest firmware. You're not going to have any weird issues or anything of that nature. So make sure you do follow that. Don't just install it and not upgrade any of the firmware. It's no different than a computer, your phone. You don't want to let that software update, that firmware update just sit there and be vulnerable to any sort of security or any other issues that could arise with these devices. So something to note there. So again, any questions on any of this, please reach out to Mario@cheapdork.com, or you could reach me here on TikTok with a comment, or follow me on YouTube at Jeep Torque FL as well. So again, stay tuned for the next one. Take care.